Hi, I wanted to record two excerpts on bass trumpet with two different setups to talk about the two simple steps that I use to deal with performance anxiety. In a way, I created my YouTube channel backwards because I started with videos going into the details and specific tools applying ISTDP to performance. For example, I did videos about rumination, self-doubt, different types of anxiety, dealing with your inner critic. So I wanted to do a video outlining an overall simplified two-step approach to dealing with performance anxiety. This is basically what I use every single day on the job playing with my orchestra. So step one is to become aware of what kind of anxiety you have. What we're looking for is whether you have low anxiety or high anxiety, and I'll describe here what the different symptoms are for each category. With low anxiety, you're going to have symptoms in your skeletal muscles, the striated muscle tissue. These are things like tight shoulders, it's one I get sometimes, tight jaw, fists, arms, can be your leg muscles as well. The one really important muscle that's also in this category is your heart, and so rapid heart rate also falls in this category. One final symptom that you might notice with low anxiety is sighing. So you can look out for that. The other category is high anxiety. With high anxiety, you're going to have symptoms like, for example, GI symptoms, like you might get nauseous. You can also get the frequent urge to go to the bathroom. You might also become really confused or dizzy. You might even feel like you're going to black out. This is high anxiety. So, just to summarize this first step, if you have tension in your skeletal muscles, rapid heart rate, sighing, then you have low anxiety. If you feel sick to your stomach, feel the urge to use the bathroom, have these kind of Alfred Hitchcock visual effects going on, then you have high anxiety. So now with your anxiety identified, you can move on to the second step, which is to use the particular technique that's most effective for the level of anxiety you're experiencing. It's important because the same approach doesn't work for both levels of anxiety. Low anxiety and high anxiety are different animals. So let's start with low anxiety. If you have low anxiety, what's really cool is you still have access to your emotions. You want to use that because your emotions are a powerful tool. It's a truth about human beings that as our emotions go up, our anxiety goes down. This is something that happens physiologically and it's automatic. It's not something you have to try to do. So if you're experiencing low anxiety symptoms, then I would advise trying to focus on the emotional content of the music itself. So if the music's sad or happy or angry or perhaps something that's not real easy to put a label on, you can try to become immersed in that feeling. It can also be the performance situation. You might feel joy in actively communicating to the audience, or maybe you're excited about an idea you want to share. Sometimes there's this kind of magic that happens. When you do something and you feel energy coming back to you from the people who are listening to you. So whether it's the music itself or the act of performing, if you have low anxiety, these are the kinds of emotions that you want to focus on and let yourself get absorbed into. What will happen is the more intensely you get immersed in your feelings, the more your anxiety will go down, and you can eventually get to a state where you just feel really relaxed and comfortable and have fun on stage. So I have a specific example of when I've used this. We went on tour with the orchestra to Japan this past spring, and one of the pieces we played on tour was Tchaikovsky's Sixth Symphony. If you know that piece, then you know in the last movement, near the very end of the symphony, there's a beautiful chorale for the low brass. The symphony overall is one of the saddest pieces of music ever written, and this chorale at the end is in a way where everything comes together in one devastating, tragic moment. So in the first performance we had, which was in Nagoya, we played the symphony, and it had gone really well up to this point. And as we neared the chorale entrance, I could feel some nerves, and specifically, I noticed my jaw was getting really tight. And aside from the fact that that tightness could make the soft notes not come out, so I needed to relax the jaw, this tightness also informed me that I had low anxiety in that moment. So what I did was I let myself become absorbed in the feelings of this music. The ending of the symphony is absolutely devastating. And by getting into that feeling, I got all these ideas about the colors and kind of attack I wanted to use, the shapes, to the little subtle changes of notes. And the result was the chorale went really well, and I was happy about it. And most importantly, I got a lot of comments about how beautiful and sad our chorale was. And it gave me a lot of meaning that I was able to communicate that to the people listening to me. I should also give a shout out to Anna, Sam, and Panilla, who played it with me. I was only 25% of the low brass for the tour, and it was a great group to play with, I have to say. What's super important here in terms of this video is that focusing on emotions only works in low anxiety situations. This technique will not work with high anxiety. It's physiologically impossible. If you have high anxiety, you can't feel your feelings. It doesn't matter how hard you try. You do not have access to your feelings with high anxiety. They're blocked. It's like a physiological roadblock that goes up with high anxiety. So you want to use a different technique, and what I'm going to recommend is Arnold Jacobs' Wind and Song. I did a detailed video about playing with high anxiety, and I'll link to that below, but basically when you're performing, you want to focus very intensely on a musical hero, or yourself on your best day, or maybe yourself singing. It doesn't really matter which of these you choose, but you should pick something or someone that creates a powerful, clear image for you. To use a personal example, my grandmother used to ask to hear a song she liked, and that was Bordoni Etudes. And she would pull a chair up next to me when I was practicing and would listen to me, and she would sing along. It's a really sweet and nice memory for me and my grandma. And I can tell you, if I'm on stage with high anxiety, it's very effective for me to imagine my grandmother sitting on a chair beside me, singing along. The idea behind Wind and Song is that you're focusing intensely on your chosen subject when you're performing. To use my example, if I'm using the memory of my grandmother singing, when I'm performing with high anxiety, I focus on the sound of her voice, that happy, proud smile on her face when she was singing, and that has such a powerful effect. It can also calm you down and shift you down into lower anxiety too. So to summarize, step 1 is to identify your anxiety, whether it's low or high, and if it's low, you're going to have symptoms like tension in the skeletal striated muscles, rapid heart rate, sighing. Or if you have high anxiety, then your symptoms might be that you feel like you're going to throw up, you have to pee a lot more, maybe feeling dizzy or confused. Step 2 is to use the technique that works best for those. And for low anxiety, you can focus on your emotions. And for high anxiety, I'm recommending the Wind and Song. What's nice is if you do ISTDP treatment, you have less and less high anxiety. And your anxiety will tend to fall more into the category of low anxiety. Through ISTDP, your brain learns to channel your anxiety into these striated skeletal muscles, into your heart rate and into sighing. The reason I say it's a nice thing is, first of all, just as a human being, high anxiety can be pretty harsh and unpleasant, and low anxiety symptoms tend to be milder. The second reason I say performing with low anxiety is nice is that personally, I find performance to be more meaningful when I've been able to get into my emotions, like with my example from the Japan tour. That was a really meaningful performance for me. Other ones, when I've had high anxiety, have gone well too, and I've been happy about some of those. But the disadvantage to using Wind and Song is that you're really not present. You're not really connecting with the audience and sharing a feeling. You don't have a choice because, as I've mentioned, when it comes to high anxiety, you can't physically feel your feelings. So the more your anxiety falls into the low category, the more you're able to actually have that connection with the audience and to your emotions and feel and express your feelings, which for me is the thing I most like about music. Now, as I mentioned, this is a simplified 2-step approach I'm describing. Identify your anxiety and use the technique suited to it. It works, and I use it all the time in my career as a professional musician. I do want to warn you about defenses. Defenses are a way of thinking that sort of a habit of thinking, a routine of thinking that interrupts and gets in the way when you're trying to do this stuff, when you're trying to perform. Defenses also raise your anxiety, and they can undermine your ability to use the techniques I've described. Examples are rumination, self-doubt, being overly critical. I've done videos about some of these. It's possible to identify and work on defenses yourself, but it's tricky because defenses are highly individual. No one can give you a complete list of them. And by design, they're meant to deceive you and to hide themselves. So it's actually helpful to find an ISTDP therapist. If If you think you might benefit from that, I'll list to the therapist directory on the ISTDP Institute website below. So the last thing, hope I didn't scare you with the defense talk there, but the last thing, which I'm going to close with, is that the more you practice the 2 steps of identifying your anxiety and using either your emotions or wind and song, the more you're going to gain some confidence, which goes a long way to dealing with performance anxiety. Just the fact that you know what to expect and feel confident in your ability to navigate it can really calm your nerves overall. So I hope you find some benefit from this 2-step technique. If there are any of these topics you'd like to dive into more deeply, then have a look at my other videos on this channel and on my website. I'm blogging on my website too about my experiences performing with the orchestra. I do get kind of busy, so I get behind sometimes, but I always come back and update on some things that are relevant or interesting, I think. And in these entries, I try to focus not just on the music that I'm playing, but also what's going on inside, internally in my mind when I'm playing, to give an insight into maybe how all of us can just continue to develop as musicians and get better with this magic, with getting into this magic state when you get this flow of emotions and feelings and ideas and thoughts and concepts, and they just transmit through the music. So feel free to reach out and contact me. I'm very happy to have one-on-one interactions about this subject, and I'm also available for individual coaching, and it's nice to get feedback from you guys too. Thanks.